Lenox and Parker. This is your editor-in-chief, Christal Jordan, and another Culture Conversations. Today's guest is one of the people behind the scenes helping to bring great content in today's landscape where we have so much to choose from. D'Angela Proctor is the woman that is doing it all, overseeing creative content for us, by us, that helps to speak to our generation in a way that exudes Black excellence. And so as the head of Undaunted Content, I'm happy to welcome D'Angela to Lenox and Parker today. Welcome, Angela.
Hi. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, I am excited to have a conversation with you today because things have changed so much over the last 10 years, even the last 5 years. And at one point, I believe a lot of people were kind of discouraged with the entertainment industry because the opportunities for us to tell our stories were so limited. And within 5 years, that has changed immensely. And there's so many different opportunities. So I'm just going to kind of ask you to talk about the change in the business and how I know you're doing an amazing story with Terry McMillan. And I believe at the time that Terry McMillan, I was a fan of Terry McMillan's for years because she, of course, was an author that one of the authors that set the tone and kind of breathed life into Black literature again in the 90s. But her movie Waiting to Exhale that came from her book changed, I think, the way we looked at Black literature moving into screenplays. So I know you have a project with her, but I just would love for you to speak about how things have changed since Waiting to Exhale, you know, in the early 90s to now, where we have so many opportunities for, you know, Black talent and Black projects.
First, thank you for having me. And to get right into it about the question, um, things have changed, and yet they've stayed the same quite a bit, in my opinion. I actually started in this business in the late 1900s, probably in like 98, 99, because I was practicing law first when I graduated from Spelman College. But when I got into the business, I remember there was a year where there had to have been like 14 Black movies released in theaters in one year. And we haven't seen that really since.
Mhm.
So I think that the more things change, in a lot of ways, things stay the same. And so yes, there's been quite a bit of opportunities, but there's also been quite a bit of pullback as well. So I think that that we probably had a height of a lot of writers and directors, especially working in scripted television, right after the murder of George Floyd, where a lot of the media companies made a commitment to right the ship,
Mhm.
so to speak, with representation in the writers' rooms. But now those things have been pulled back, obviously because of the zeitgeist and because of the conservative bend of where culture is going today. But I do think that while a lot of standard and mainstream and traditional opportunities may have gone away, the fact that you can be a social media influencer or create content on social media platforms, and you own and control the content, I think that's a huge win for content creators.
It is so different. But like you said, so many things stay the same. I do remember, you know, when we had movies, specifically like, you know, there were movies that was made for TV, those movies that came from books, you know, are often, I think in any culture, in any genre, are often the most lauded. And why do you think that is? When you have a book, I mean, you look at so many different series and so many different movies that are
Mhm.
based on books, they seem to do a lot better, you know, in many ways than projects that are just created. What do you think that the difference between that is?
Well, it's definitely marketing. There's no question that if it's underlying intellectual property. So the underlying IP is number one, what makes um, the studio executives feel like converting something from a book or a video game or a toy or something like that is going to work going forward because it has a built-in audience already. So
Mhm.
that's why books, and to be quite frank with you, a lot of times there's so many plot points that are already figured out in the book that you
Mhm.
know is going to work, so that when you transfer it to a screenplay, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I can see it better. So it
Mhm.
makes it easier for development executives to support something that has underlying IP rather than starting from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Now you are working with two literary giants, legends. You have an upcoming project with Terry McMillan, Preach, Pray, Love. Which when I saw the trailer, I was so excited just because I'm a huge Terry McMillan fan from when she was just writing. I remember I worked for Barnes and Noble. I had the opportunity to have her come to the store, and I was just in awe. And then seeing, I think her initial Waiting to Exhale was one of the most just amazing examples of how a book can retain its magic. And then, of course, she gets Stella gets her groove back. But you also have Eric Jerome Dickey, who is another literary giant. And these two projects are coming out in November. Can you talk about just what made you excited about them, and how did you know, aside from the fact that these are two literary legends, but how did you know that these particular projects were right for Undaunted Content?
Well, first of all, the I'm a church girl. I grew up in the church. My grandfather was a pastor. I attended my grandfather's church growing up, and
Mhm.
I've always had this affinity for faith forward projects. And so when I read the initial script, or the treatment, actually was in the treatment phase. It was really like a bare bones outline, so to speak,
Mhm.
where I read it and I was like, oh my God, a rapper and a preacher, like that's a no brainer. So that's how. So I read that treatment and I pitched it to Lifetime, and they loved it. And so internally, they started calling the project Hot Pastor. Because it's like, what happens if a hot pastor gets with a hip hop artist?
Mhm.
So that's how that project came to be, from my affinity for faith forward projects, and also Michael Elliott, who's a huge writer and has been. He wrote Brown Sugar back in the day, and he's the visionary writer, along with his partner Corey Tynan, for the Ruth and Boaz story that's now playing on Netflix.
Mhm.
So that was an easy sell, and it was a even easier leap to say that we should put this under the Terry McMillan brand. Lifetime came up with that idea, and I thought it was brilliant, and I really supported it because this is my second project with under the Terry McMillan brand at Lifetime. The first one was Tempted by Love, starring
Mhm.
Garcelle Bouvet and Von Hebron, and we did a wink nod to how Stella got a groove back, because it's a May December romance, and we did a wink nod to Waiting to Excel that you mentioned earlier by casting Leela Rashawn and Loretta Devine in Tempted by Love. So again, those things, they have a familiarity with the audience,
Mhm.
and so that's what makes the audience tune in. So that's how Preach Pray Love came to be.
Mhm.
And on the Friends and Lovers, which is the Eric Jerome Dickey book that we just
Beautiful, yeah.
adapted for television. I've been an Eric Jerome Dickey fan my I don't know, my entire adult reading life.
Mhm.
And when I was the head of programming at TV1, I wanted to be in the Eric Jerome Dickey business when I was making movies there, and I
Mhm.
just couldn't pull it off. And that was when he was still with us. And now that he is passed, I really thought that like somebody should pay tribute and homage to the literary giant that he is.
Mhm.
And so when I was talking to Lifetime about the development of projects, and they said, have you heard of this Friends and Lovers? I was like, have I heard of it? I tried to get it years ago. To them, I know his team. I could
Mhm.
probably call his book agent and manager and find out if the rights are still available. And I called her up and I was like, hey, remember me from when I was at TV1? And she did. And so it just that was 2 years ago, and here we are now with
Mhm.
the premiere of the project happening November 15th and 16th.
That is huge. I remember when that book came out. Again, I was at Barnes and Noble doing as community relations manager doing that, and I remember just as a part of that huge boom of Black literature, there. You mentioned that you have been a proponent of faith-based projects, and I was happy to hear that. That's part of our one of our missions here at Lenox and Parker. But I think
Mhm.
often, because we see so much, this is in 2025. There's so much exposure, and there's so many boundaries that people love to push. I often wonder, is there an audience that wants to see faith-based and, faith motivated projects. What are your thoughts on that? Because like I said, we're in a day time where that is not always embraced as quickly as the more scandalous or things that just are shocking. Sometimes it's not even great substance, it's just
Right.
shocking. People are drawn often to that. But do you think there's an audience that really appreciates projects rooted in faith?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why there are different platforms that have hugely successful faith forward, faith based options in television series like The Chosen, or all of the projects like The Forge and The War Room. I definitely think there's an audience for these types of projects, especially now. I think that when the world is kind of going crazy, I think we look for stuff that can make us feel safe, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's what Preach, Pray, Love does. And I think that faith forward and faith motivated, I like the way you call that, faith motivated projects will absolutely be successful, and more will get made. And I intend to do the same. I think it remains sadly an untapped market,
Mm-hmm.
especially for people of color.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times when people hear faith based, they don't automatically think quality. They
Mm-hmm.
just think, oh, it's just this, it's a small movie, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles as a bigger movie.
Yes.
But I think that hopefully that will change going forward.
Let me ask you this: to staying in that line of thinking, what do you think is the formula to having something that is based and rooted in faith, but also appeals to a broader audience? Because a lot of those projects that you mentioned, The Forge and The Chosen, they do have a very targeted demographic, and they don't often go outside that demographic, even though that demographic is usually very loyal, and looking forward and very connected. A lot of times they don't have the reach outside of that. But the projects that you're working on have the ability to hit that demographic, and then also just the pop culture
Hmm.
demographic that loves great stories, and often are fans of the writers, and even just the subject nature. So
Yeah.
what is that formula for being able to remain loyal to what your message is, but then also
Hmm.
a bigger audience?
Well, even when I was a programmer, I've always preached that putting medicine in the food, but the food better taste good.
Yes. Yeah.
So the reality is that it's got to be great on paper. Like the script has to be great,
Mm-hmm.
and even like on in Friends and Lovers, as we were shooting, I just kept feeling like something was missing, and that was the faith based element, because it was all about these relationships. And when I had an opportunity to, I had the lead actress that plays Deborah in Friends and Lovers, Notori, convert some of the dialogue that she was talking to her love interest about, to convert it to a prayer instead of a conversation. Just so, like, just little things like that, where you can have a faith message without being overbearing and still tell a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And when something, a tragedy happens in the movie, I was like, we're missing the faith response
Mm-hmm.
to this tragedy. And so I actually, wrote in something there as well, so that it can have like a moment of true faith,
Mm-hmm.
because I think everything requires balance. I don't think that every drama should be without a laugh, because even when you're going through something, something may make you laugh or smile. So I believe in levity within dramas, and I
Mm-hmm.
also believe that in everyday things, and in funny things even, there's got to be some grounding, and sometimes that's where faith comes in.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about this process, because I'm fascinated with the idea of transferring the book, and we know that the book gives you so many layers, and you can see so many different things because the book allows you to use your creativity, changing that into a screenplay and being able to keep the integrity of the story, but then also keep the viewer connected in a much shorter frame. How does
Right.
that happen? Or what is your process for that?
Well, I think that with Friends and Lovers, particularly, that's why Friends and Lovers is a two-part movie, because Eric he created such rich characters, and so many juicy things happen to all of them. So you're trying to follow four individual people, two separate relationships, actually four different relationships, because it's the friendships and the romantic relationships. And actually we could have made a series. Like it could have been three movies easily. And then so you really just have to pick your battles, like in terms of, okay, for this character, we're going to start her here and then we need to end her there, and then you pull the stuff out of the book that makes that happen, because there's no way we could tell every single thing that happened in that book. There's just no way. Like time just doesn't did not and does not permit for us to do so. But it all boils down to great storytelling, always. And it always boils down to, is there a beginning, middle, and end for everyone's arc? And are these characters that we want to spend all this time with? Because we have so many other entertainment options these days. So it better be good to make me want to sit still for an hour and a half or two to
Right.
2 hours,
Right.
to watch it. And so as I am developing things, I always put myself in the shoes of the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this something I want to pull away from my life for 2 hours to sit down and watch? And is it going to allow? I think I've done my job when it allows a woman who has to clean up the kitchen, fold the clothes, take care of the kids, wash the, cook dinner, but they're able to like sit down and see themselves for
Mm-hmm.
2 hours without worrying about all that other stuff.
Yeah. What is the difference at this point between streaming and being able to see something on television? I remember a time when we used to actually, like, I saw that the Terry McMillan piece was coming, and I was like, I gotta watch that when it actually comes out, right? Because I have that type of reverence for Terry McMillan. But
Hmm.
most people, I'm like, oh, I'll see if it's streaming. I will watch it whenever. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
not really, it's not a priority in the same way. Do you think that's
Hmm.
hurt us, or do you think that helps? And how do you
It's,
see streaming versus televised premieres from your perspective?
I mean, you know, my projects premiere on cable television,
Mhm.
right? And the metrics for success are is the viewership from the audience on cable television.
On that day,
So
on that premiere date, not
that
later.
premiere date, the premiere date. So Preach, Pray, Love premieres November 8th.
Mhm.
Friends and Lovers premieres on the 15th and 16th of November. So you need to tune in during that time to, if you want to continue getting these types of projects from this particular place from Lifetime, you
Mhm.
need to watch it. And if you record it, even watch it within 3 days.
Mhm.
So those metrics still matter.
Yeah.
And yeah, the streaming audience, they are taking uh social media, entertainment. There are lots of places that are taking the viewership from cable,
Mhm.
and it makes it really difficult to get things made on cable TV. So it's a give and a take. It's, the problem is that, there are fewer streaming services, there are fewer successful streaming services than there were cable networks. So
Mhm.
just keep in mind that the more we embrace streaming, there are fewer buyers,
Yeah.
right? There are fewer buyers and there are fewer gatekeepers, which means, there's limited opportunities for us to see ourselves.
hmm Well, that's why it's important for us to get the word out and make sure that
Yep.
people are watching these two projects. I want you to tell us a little something. What is your favorite thing about Preach, Pray, Love, and then Friends and Lovers, just to make sure that our viewers know they need to be tuned in? Because I definitely saw that before I
Yeah.
even got a chance to talk to D'Angela. I was like, I got to be in front of the TV because
Yeah.
there's just something that feels like that nostalgia of being, there with your partner and watching, like the movie. Something I think that streaming doesn't give. I love binging a show, but it's just something about making time for something that you know is going to be of substance. So
Yeah.
give us a little something that you can, a little secret or something that you can share with us about what you loved about Preach, Pay, Love, and then Friends and Lovers.
Well, Preach, Pray, Love, let's be clear, it is unequivocally, without question, two things. One, the fact that Karuchi is actually rapping. Yeah, that's her rapping,
Okay.
period. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's pretty cool to see. She went in
That
the
is.
studio.
Can't wait
She's a
to see that.
beast. She went in the studio and these are original songs that she recorded. So
Okay.
that's the first thing. The second thing about Preach, Pray, Love, I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but Mark Hood
Hmm.
is a singer. He has a beautiful voice. I think he was on The Voice. He was on one of those Shiny Floor series, competition series. So
Hmm.
Mark can sing.
Okay.
So I think those are the two things to definitely look for. He's a church boy too. So you can feel that when he's praying. You can feel that when he's doing his sermons.
Hmm.
So I cannot wait for people to see and enjoy those two aspects. Oh, third, I have a third thing. The Brat is just awesome.
We love.
The Brad is awesome. She's a great actress, and I'm so glad she came to play with us on this film. So, and Friends and Lovers, man, the cast,
Hmm.
like the cast is just beastie. I mean, like Ron Rico Lee, Notori Naughton, Simone Missick,
Hmm.
and Kendrick Sampson. Who did I miss? Notori. I mean, it just
Yeah, you
the
gotta.
four of them,
Hmm.
like the four of them, they're just exceptional.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud for for that I was given the opportunity to direct them. If I could say that I directed them at all, they
Hmm.
directed me. But no, seriously, no, they were outstanding, and I think that they definitely would make Eric Jerome Dickey proud of what they were able to accomplish. I mean, they're just incredible.
Hmm.
And let's see. And we had a lot of production challenges on this film. I mean, production's hard, period.
Hmm.
But we had a lot of challenges, and the fact that we came out through the other side with these two, not one, but two incredible movies. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, well, and I'm not going to have you say it, but I will say I'm interested to see Karuchi rap. I wonder if her and her ex-boyfriend that she was introduced to the industry on is going to enjoy her performance. I have to say that. I wonder what Chris Brown is going to think of Karuchi rap, and I have to say that. And the fact I was saying it's amazing that you have Karuchi rapping and the Brat
Yeah.
in the film as a. So I wonder what the Brat thought of her performance. I'm sure that if she allowed it, she definitely was okay with it. You know?
Exactly. She
Yeah,
did a great job. She did a
I can't
fantastic
wait.
job.
I can't wait to see it. I had to ask you one last question. These are huge pieces. We're so happy that we have people like you behind the scenes pushing substance and pushing quality content that we can all be, just proud of and look forward to enjoying. What is D'Angela's key to successful storytelling?
Oh, is there a key? Well, is there a key? I mean, I work really hard.
Mhm.
So I work really hard, and I use this word often, and a lot of people don't like the use of the word, but I interrogate everything. I mean, I interrogate the stories, I interrogate the characters, I interrogate every step of the process, like whether it's is this the right location? Can we do better? Is this the right? Are these the right cameras for this to tell this story? Where can I elevate at every stage of what I'm doing to make it all worthwhile, to make the audience come and enjoy themselves. So I interrogate everything. And yeah, and I work really hard too. Just to, because this stuff is not easy
Yeah.
by any means. And so I pray a lot and I work harder.
I love that. Work really hard, attention to detail, and just having years under your belt doing it.
Yeah.
My absolute last question is: I love the picture behind you, showing all the blacks, just amazing, legends as superheroes. Can you speak a little bit about why that inspires you? That piece behind you inspires you.
Well, so this is called the superhero collection by a beautiful, wonderful artist named Bart Cooper,
Mhm.
and he just, I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this, but he just released 10 additional superhero women. So back to Bart Cooper. So he's an amazing artist. I bought the. Are you still there? Okay, I bought the 10, and I have these are 9 back here, and then I have Oprah Winfrey in my office because that needs to inspire me to keep it pushing.
Absolutely.
But I think it that everything requires you to see uh, what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these women, even though, they might not be filmmakers, but I am able to see what they were able to accomplish in
Mm-hmm.
their lives. So I endeavor to do the same thing in my life. And that, again, is like putting medicine in the food, working harder, making sure that everything that I do is excellent,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that everything I do is elevated, even though, the budget might be small. You shouldn't watch it and feel like it,
Yeah.
right? So I just want to make sure that everything that I do is excellent and elevated, and I do it all in honor of these women that have done the same in their respective worlds.
I love that, and we definitely will be adding you to our pictures as a woman that is committed to committed to excellence and pushing us forward. Thank you so much for spending time with us, D'Angela. We definitely are going to make sure that our viewers know about these two pieces and are tuned in, and we definitely will keep in touch with you. So when you have something else coming out, make sure that you stop by and let us know about it. But thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you. I would love to. Take care.
All right, you
Bye
too.
bye. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. All right, there you guys have it. We had a great conversation with D'Angela Proctor. Make sure that you are tuned in on Lifetime. It's super important for us to support on those days so that they get the numbers in. And we will all be watching to see what is Karrueche like as a rapper. And again, I wonder, would Chris Brown approve? Interesting. Stay in tune. There's more from this interview at lenoxandparker.com. This has been Christal Jordan, your editor-in-chief. Another great culture conversation. I'll see you guys soon.